I'd start with you, Scott. So, Scott Powell, City of Tempe.
Micah Miranda, City of Chandler.
Lori Gary, City of Mesa.
Doreen Cott, Town of Queen Creek.
Janine Hanna-Solley, City of Apache Junction.
Dan Henderson, Town of Gilbert, really representing the Chicago Cubs.
Okay, so first question. Can each of you give us a quick update on the economic development activities occurring in your community? We'll start with Scott.
Okay. Well, I know you guys got this from me back in December, so I tried to take a little bit different take so you didn't hear the exact same thing, 8 weeks later. So thought I'd focus a little bit more on kind of the technology and real estate side of Tempe. So just over the last year, 2016, we saw over 400,000 square feet of absorption just in the technology space. And most of that was really within 6 companies. So from Carvana, Oscar out of the East Coast, House out of San Francisco, and Amazon opened up its Small Business Assistance Center to be its third presence in Tempe. When people think of Amazon in the Valley, they tend to think of the West Valley Fulfillment Centers, but we now have an IT division, a logistics division, and now their Small Business Assistance Center, all located in Tempe along 3 different sites. So, mentioned to you guys last time about ADP, but in 2017, to bring you guys back up to speed what's happened in the past couple months, ZipRecruiter has just taken 26,000 square feet and is going to double its workforce. It announced it started in Tempe, first office outside of Santa Monica in about this time last year with 30 people. It is currently at this point in time is at over 200, and it'll be at 400 this time next year. So if you start looking at the size of their space, they're fitting in there really tight. And honestly, I got a little claustrophobic during my site visit. But again, they have been thrilled with the talent that they've been able to find. Being their online recruiter, how they chose Tempe was they were looking at all the resumes they were getting in and said, we're getting some really strong candidates out of the Southeast Valley. We probably should consider our first location, in this area, which is, they looked at Salt Lake City, Austin, and Denver as well. And between those, they chose to be right here in the Southeast Valley. Along that as well, Endurance Group out of the Boston area. Isn't a name most people would recognize, but I think everybody's seen an email from Constant Contact and has seen advertisements for SiteGator. They're the parent company for those two. Have about 68,000 square feet, have been here for about 5-6 years, and are now doubling their size, taking another 71,000 square feet and adding 600 jobs here over the next year. So again, exciting news, on those responses as well. But as we're seeing all this growth, there is a few concerning parts. So Tempe's got its commercial office space. Our vacancy rate's about 12%, which sounds pretty good, but we're seeing a real flight to quality. People want to be in high quality Class A space. Our vacancy rate in Tempe for Class A is about 4%. When you get into the downtown area, it's 2%. So even with the sublet opportunity, it brings up about 3.5. So we're starting to see some serious space constraints. So we've been working really hard with the development community to start entitling more buildings. So Rio 2100 just built 100,000 square feet of spec office. I can't tell you the last time I saw a spec office building, being built honestly outside of Revulon and Gilbert, but delivered it without even a tenant, in sight. And on top of that, they're about ready to submit plans to deliver another 400,000 square feet with a tenant in tow. So that should be coming along here in the next couple of years. The announcement, I was hoping to have it ready for today, but it's not quite ready yet. It's 2 weeks out and probably will be 2 weeks out. On top of that as well, Tempe Tech Park next to Town Lake, we're starting the development agreement with that. Next to the Tempe Center for the Arts will be another 1 million square feet of high quality office space. And then the Watermark, which will be, if you went to ASU, I remember it as Club Rio. Some people remember it as the Devil House. To give you a geographic, again, first phase will have 240,000 square feet, 9-story building, about 40,000 retail as well. So quick overview of what's going on in Tempe over the past 2 months since last time I saw it.
Stuff going on in Tempe. Good to see. Obviously, as Carlos mentioned, Chandler has a little bit of a capital investment from Intel going on. So I won't spend any more time on that. But I'm going to come at it from a little bit of a different perspective in terms of what we're doing to drive economic activity. One of the things Mayor and Council has been very cognizant of over the past couple of years and decades, is maintaining fiscal stability. So we just got new financial ratings from all three bond rating agencies. We're one of 26 cities and towns across the whole United States that has a AAA bond rating from all three rating agencies. And so, like Tempe and all the other communities, we're very focused on driving speculative office and industrial development. And what that AAA bond rating does is it signals to the private sector when they make a 10, 20, 30, 40, $50 million capital investment in Chandler, that there's not gonna be wild tax swings, and that's underpinned by sound political stability. So between fiscal stability and political stability, Chandler is continuing down that same path. On the business attraction side and industrial office space development, in and around the Chandler Air Park, we're seeing approximately 1 million square feet of speculative office and industrial space. Again, why that's important to the region is, I think all of us would agree, about 80 to 85% of all of our business development leads require speculative office or industrial space. So having that product on the market to show companies looking to expand into the region is very important. So my office is continuing to make calls on developers selling Chandler for their investment. Last month at the Mayor's State of the City address, we unraveled the Uptown Chandler branding initiative. This is our former North Chandler employment corridor. Within the city of Chandler, we have 5 distinct employment corridors, North Chandler being the second oldest employment corridor out of downtown. Very critical employment corridor, a lot of people don't even recognize or think about, but it constitutes 10% of our total employment in the community and 17% of our industrial and flex space. So maintaining the infrastructure, visibility, and economic competitiveness of that region is critical. So we'll continue to roll out new initiatives to maintain that identity and drive it forward. Some recent announcements, late last year, December, we announced a expansion of orbital ATKs, launch systems in Chandler, 500 engineering positions into the Allred Park Place development. Prior to that, we worked with Rogers Corporation on their corporate relocation from Rogers, Connecticut to Chandler. And throughout the year, we've had a number of really exciting announcements. DaVita is adding 600 new jobs in the Price Quarter. They're a specialty pharmacy company. So we've had a very positive 2016. It was our leading job growth year for the past 5 years. So a lot of positive momentum, and that doesn't even include the recent Intel announcement. So we're continuing down the path of fiscal and political stability in Chandler to really drive economic competitiveness and to stay at the forefront of corporate decision makers.
Very good. Again, I'm Lori Gary with the City of Mesa. We continue to focus on our 4 pillars of opportunities here in Mesa. And those are, we call it our HEAT initiative. That's healthcare, aviation and aerospace, education, and technology. According to MAG, there are 9 employment corridors in the city of Mesa, and I'm going to just take you through a couple of those corridors to briefly give you an idea of what's happening. First and foremost, I'm going to start downtown. Downtown continues to be a strong focus for the city of Mesa. We have finished, as you all know, the light rail system in downtown, and we are expanding it 2 miles to the east to Gilbert Road. And that stretch of the light rail system should be completed by 2018. So we continue to invest in our downtown core. We have several universities downtown. Benedictine University is growing strong, growing by leaps and bounds. As a matter of fact, they have brought 13 new sports programs to their campus in downtown Mesa, and they continue to expand their footprint in downtown Mesa, and they have there's no signs of stopping, and we are just excited to have them downtown. Benedictine University also took an old hotel downtown called the Alhambra Hotel. I see some people shaking their heads. They know what that is or what it looked like, and they have repositioned that into student housing for downtown. And that is exciting for us. It's an old historic hotel, and now we have some new life and some new breath into it. So if those walls could talk, that'd be interesting what they could tell us, and now that we've got students living in there. We also are doing some priming the pump for downtown. We are expanding our redevelopment area on Main Street East and West. We currently have a redevelopment area in the heart of downtown, and we would like to position both the east and the west along Main Street to be able to tap into the programs that the redevelopment area will allow us to tap into. That work is underway. The Fiesta District, which we are sitting in right now, we are very proud to have Mesa Community College in the Fiesta District, as well as the hospital. The hospital, Banner Desert Hospital, as well as Cardin Children's Hospital, has had some really interesting expansions going on there. I had an opportunity to visit with the CEO, and they have elevated their trauma level, and especially for pediatric trauma, say that 3 times fast, and have invested a lot of money into focusing on the pediatric trauma. They are one of the only ones in the Metro Phoenix area that have expanded their surgery centers for pediatrics, their trauma center for pediatrics, and they continue to do that. I always get questions on the Fiesta Mall. Everybody's familiar with that. And we are looking and working with a developer to reposition that asset. It's a very complicated ownership. There's 5 owners on that piece of property, and then there's another agreement that is layered on top of that ownership on how that mall operates. So we are looking at repositioning that into a high-tech corporate campus along with some mixed developments, and those things are clicking along. As a matter of fact, a developer has purchased 2 of those 5 pieces of property, and the internal portion of the Fiesta Mall, which is being operated by a special servicer for the internal portion, is coming up for auction in April. And so I've had the opportunity to speak with a number of different developers on our vision for that piece of property. This particular district is over 700 acres, and we have been fortunate to have over $500 million worth of investment, public and private investment. We have a new company called Santander Consumer Services who went into an adaptive reuse project. They currently have 500 employees, and they're ramping up to almost 1,000. National General Lender Services Company also went into another building in the Fiesta District. They're ramping up to 500. Esurance went in a number of years ago, and there's another 200 employees there. So we have a long way to go, but we're continuing to work on that. Our aerospace and aviation is focused mainly in 2 areas. One is Falcon District by our Falcon Field General Aviation Airport and the Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport. How am I doing on time?
You're close.
Okay. We have our Phoenix Mesa Gateway folks are here. I don't want to take away any of their thunder, but they are developing a 350+ acre aviation campus, which will have runway access. So there's a lot of developable land in and around the Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport, and a couple of new airline carriers. Is that correct, Brian?
That's correct. Actually, Allegiant started Cleveland service on February 19th and is doing really well. And then we've got the WestJet service that started on January 19th to Calgary and Edmonton. They're averaging a 95% load factor. And I think the most important part of that is it's not impacting the service that they already have at Sky Harbor. So it's really starting to identify the East Valley as a market that can sustain service on its own, which is really great as we go out and talk to additional airlines in the future.
Aviation aerospace, as you can tell, continue to be a strong focus in the Falcon Field District. We have underway a couple of new projects. One is a precision manufacturing operation that is in the works right now. They have their customer is an aerospace and aviation company, and they are expanding, so they need some new space, and we're going to be very happy to welcome them into the Falcon Field District. That, in a nutshell, are some of the things that are going on in the city of Mesa, and I will turn this now over to my colleague Doreen.
Thank you, Lori. Again, I'm Doreen Cott from Queen Creek. it's always interesting when we do these panels and following some of the larger, more mature in their growth cycle cities, because we have different sets of opportunities in Queen Creek as compared to some of the larger cities. But last night, our mayor and council shared the state of the town, so it was an exciting evening for us just to hear all the accomplishments over 2016, and I brought some brochures if anybody's interested in a summary of what we've all accomplished as a team. We have a really great team in Queen Creek. But in Queen Creek, we're really seeing strong residential growth. We are issuing over 1,000, well, we did issue over 1,000 single-family housing permits in 2016, which was an increase of over 11% from 2015. So it continues to be very strong. A lot of the new residential interest is in our northern tier, which also serves, there's a large area of land for future employment. So that's exciting because as that infrastructure gets to those residential areas, it is bringing that critically needed infrastructure to our employment area. So it's very exciting. It's getting us more poised to be able to attract some of that speculative building that we all need, as Micah referred to. So that's been very strong and very exciting. We are focusing a lot of our planning efforts in our downtown. We've seen some of the amazing success of, the downtowns of, Gilbert, Chandler, Tempe, Mesa, and we feel there's some great opportunity in Queen Creek. So we are getting close to selecting a consultant to help us with a new plan for our downtown or our town center. And so we really hope to focus on those redevelopment opportunities along Ellsworth Road south of Ocotillo. We also are excited to announce our first brewery will be opening in the next few months. Old Ellsworth Brewing will be opening in our downtown. So just a great addition to our agritainment cluster, and we've got to sample the beer and it's great. So we're really excited for that new addition to the community. And then with all of the residential growth, the town recognized the need for significant capital improvement projects. So over the next 10 years, we've put together a plan for that infrastructure totaling $196 million of needs. So we're looking at the best way to schedule that and fund that because it's obviously a necessity for a growing community to have that critical infrastructure in place. In addition, we are focusing on a new park, our West Park site, and working on design, critically needed facilities for our new residents with ball field, skate park, and a fishing lake, which will be exciting because it'll be the first in Queen Creek. So we've been working on that. Last night, in addition to the state of the town, the council did approve a pre-annexation development agreement with Banner Health. We are working to annex in the Banner Ironwood Medical Center into Queen Creek. It is in our planning area. And they have asked the town to work with them to annex them into the community. So that's exciting. As that annexation, the technical parts of that moves forward, that we'll be able to say we have a full-service hospital in our community. Let's see, what else do we have going on? And then just some exciting things in our town center. We have some new restaurants opening. Chop Shop will be opening in the next few months. Pita Jungle, which has been long awaited by our residents, over by our Harkins Theater. I already mentioned the brewery, but just a lot of interest in that downtown area, and just an exciting time for us. So with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague Janine.
Yes, and in Apache Junction, we're at a very exciting time now too. We're an established community that seems to be surrounded by a lot of land. And while we don't have a shortage of land, we do have a shortage of readily developable land because most of it is either state or BLM. So the great news about that, though, is our leadership is out and they are actively working to inform that development community that we are preparing for that land's development. We have capacity in sewer and water. We have an existing freeway that can service that area. So there's a lot of upside to that, and we just want to continue to see additional growth. There is a lot of support in our community to see that land grow, so we want to get that message out, and our leaders are doing a great job of that. We're really optimistic too because our general plan and even the conceptual plan that was done for Lost Dutchman Heights, which is 12 square miles of property in the city limits already, but is state land, that actually makes way, and this is a little shift in strategy for Apache Junction, but it calls out for employment uses. We kind of grew up as a community that was kind of getting away from things and a haven for seniors and folks just wanting to vacation. So we're thinking strategically different in that regard. So that's really our future, and we're very hopeful that that's closer than longer term. But right now, we're really focusing on retention of our local businesses. We have a plethora of small businesses in Apache Junction, and some of their needs are greater than others. For example, we'll work with businesses, and we work with them, we touch base early and we touch base often because we need to keep them in our community. We're working to expand some broadband capacity in one of our prime industrial parks. We're made aware that the service just wasn't cutting it, so we're trying to help them out there. We work with mom and pops too, who might be having trouble getting through a signage issue or a zoning issue. So wherever we can help our local business community, we're there to support them. Redevelopment is also a huge part of Apache Junction's economic development strategy. We've primarily focused a lot of our redevelopment efforts in our downtown core area, and the reason we're doing that and kind of focusing is that's where we want private investment to come. We want to make those, excuse me, primary investments, and then we want private investment to follow. We have added some street networks. We've done some drainage improvements. We've done beautification projects. Most recently, we were able to acquire about 3.5 acres of space through a land swap, and that is going to be the first time ever Apache Junction will actually have publicly owned public space in the downtown core. We want to do that to create events and activities and bring more people into our downtown area. We're also very excited. We were awarded a grant from EPA Building Blocks. They're going to be coming out to do a 2-day workshop at the end of this month to help us specifically with infill strategies. Staff has identified a number of really key, great prime parcels that can accommodate smaller type of infill projects. So we're looking forward to advancing that initiative as well. And I'm really happy to say that we've been working on this for a number of years, and we're really starting to see some of the fruits of our labor. There have been a number of businesses in Apache Junction, small businesses that have actually grown out of their spaces, and are a number of the last few that were very successful, literally doubling in size. So that's great to see. We also have some new development that's going to be going vertical, starting hopefully this month, which we've been anticipating for a while. About 200,000 square feet of new commercial space going up in our core downtown. So we're really excited. That's a big project for Apache Junction, so we're very excited. Another thing that's desperately needed and most welcome in Apache Junction is single-family units. We have about 3 new subdivisions that are going in that's going to bring about 300 additional housing units to our area, so that is really exciting too. Of course, we have the Superstition Mountains. We're home to the Superstition Mountains, and we know that area, that landmass, will never be able to be redeveloped. Well, we don't want to redevelop it, but it will never be an airport. It will never be a university. It's always going to be a mountain. It's not going anywhere. So we know that we have to strategically figure out how to take that natural asset and make that work and result in something positive economically for our city. So we have done some work with the Arizona Office of Tourism and some of the neighboring community assets, some of the attractions that are there. Of course, we continue to support our local visitor information center. We historically have kind of been a community that you drive through to get to those cool places out there, and we want to be part of that mix. We want to be part of that experience for visitors. So that kind of full circles us back to why we're doing a lot of our downtown redevelopment and creating spaces and places in that area. So we kind of have long-term visions. We've got some immediate things that we're working on, and all of it is to balance and really have a long-term sustainable Apache Junction in the years to come.
Thank you. Dan Henderson with Gilbert. Some of the echoing comments here. It sounds like a lot of infrastructure in the various communities. Certainly, Gilbert is working on some infrastructure in some key areas. One most notably along the 202. We're going through some of the public planning process, working with the feds, working with the state to entertain this idea of a transit interchange off of Lindsay. It's about a $25 million endeavor, but section of the 202 is currently in a rating category of failing. And so the idea of this expansion would remove that failing status for two exits at Gilbert and at Val Vista and create some additional capacity. Another significant area of infrastructure is in our downtown. We currently in a master planning process for another parking structure. This one about 560 spaces. It might even push 600. So echoing the theme of my colleagues here, infrastructure is a significant area of focus for our economic development efforts. As a brief overview for Gilbert, we have about 27 million square feet of commercial space. We've got about 4.3 million square feet under construction plan or proposed. Similar to some of the net absorption statistics that Scott threw out, Gilbert had about 500,000 square feet of net absorption for office and industrial properties. Effectively lowered our vacancy rate in both areas. The vacancy dropped from 19% to 17% for office and 12%, and from 12% to 9% for industrial space. The Heritage District continues to be a significant area of focus for us with a number of new restaurants, mixed-use development projects opening. I think that gives a general overview given the timeline for Gilbert.
Great. Thank you all. So as the agenda was being put together, the conversation was, boy, if you know, economic development person, they're going to want to go forever to talk about their city, as well they should. So we wanted to give them enough time to kind of give us an update, brag on themselves a little bit. We're going to ask this next question. You only get 60 to 90 seconds to respond. So this is hard, right? The other twist to this is we're going to ask you to brag on a neighbor. Okay, so here's the setup for the question. All right, assume I'm a site selector considering your community, and I share that my client wants to choose a site in your community, but right on the border of a neighboring community, okay? So I want to know what positive things you can tell me about the community next to you that'll leave me feeling good, right? Okay, so that's the setup. So with that in mind, Doreen, we're going to ask you to share briefly something positive about Gilbert.
Okay. Gilbert. So Gilbert is a great neighbor, has many great things happening. Gilbert experienced tremendous growth over the past 3 decades with a population of about 30,000 in 1990. Gilbert is now home to over 250,000 residents. That's unbelievable, the growth. Gilbert residents are young, well-educated, and will help provide a pipeline of quality employees for your new employment center in Queen Creek. Gilbert's downtown, or Heritage District, is an amazing place to visit. They've created a great food and drink scene with a combination of great restaurants, retailers, entertainment venues. I'm particularly excited about Whiskey Row opening next week. Sometimes I have to remind the residents in Queen Creek that Gilbert's great downtown took over 30 years to develop. Being a young community, we have much to look forward to. In addition to the downtown, Gilbert offers a variety of different experiences, from shopping at Santan Mall, playing golf at Topgolf, catching a game at Big League Dreams, or taking a walk at the Riparian Preserve. There's plenty to do for the entire family. Gilbert was named a top Phoenix suburb and has the highest percentage of family households in the state, offering a variety of housing options. In addition to the great housing options you can find in Queen Creek for your employees, and Gilbert was recently recognized as the 2nd safest city in the U.S. Gilbert is also home to many top-notch employers, including Orbital, Banner Health, and GoDaddy.
Wow, great. Thank you. All right, Dan, now you're on the bubble here. Okay, Dan, you're going to share some feedback about Chandler.
Sure. Looking off of my notes here, certainly Chandler has a young, affluent resident base with nearly 70% having some college education, and provides obviously an excellent labor pool for businesses in the community and the surrounding trade area. It's got a high-tech cluster that makes it very intriguing for notable employers to locate in the Southeast Valley. It has an array of cultural and entertainment options in not only their downtown, but also Chandler Fashion Square and certainly the Chandler Center for the Arts. Certainly a lot more than that, but those are some key anchors. Some interesting workforce stats. Chandler is a net importer of engineers and production workers. They have a median wage for STEM occupations is the highest in the East Valley. and the second highest concentration of STEM occupations in the East Valley behind Tempe. Over 12,000 Chandler residents work in STEM occupations, and that represents about 7% of their total workforce.
Great. Thank you, Dan.
You bet.
All right, Micah, would you share some positives about Tempe, please?
Yeah. Tempe is a wonderful community. They've had a long history of visionary leadership and establishing themselves as a urban environment in North Tempe for your business or for your employees to take advantage of. They have high quality educational assets. Both Tempe, Union, Kyrene elementary school districts perform very well. They have a number of recreational assets they've made long-term investments in, specifically Tempe Town Lake, the Papago Buttes area. The connectivity to the airport is very important in getting your employees, your corporate visitors in and out. And I think one of the appreciated parts of Tempe from a residential perspective is the pedestrian and bicycle connectivity. They have made significant infrastructure improvements in making sure it's not just a auto-centric community, but one where you can truly ride your bike from South Tempe to North Tempe in a very safe fashion, which ultimately leads to a very a community where you feel like you have a sense of place. As you ride past places, you're like, oh, I remember that place, I'm gonna stop in there and grab a bite to eat, or you start to become familiar with shop owners. So even though it's urban, it's dense, there still is that sense of place that you feel comfortable in, and it's really a welcoming community.
Thank you, Micah. Scott, would you share a little bit about Mesa, please?
So I'm going to paint a picture for you here. Half a million residents, over 30,000 college students ranging from general studies, medical doctors, physician assistants to MBAs. International airport that's one of the fastest growing in the country, multiple light rail stops. Presence of Apple, Boeing, Bridgestone, all household names. And they have a commitment to entrepreneurship, multiple incubators, accelerators, and other amenities to help small businesses grow and thrive. You know, most people think I'd be describing Charlotte, Portland, Minneapolis. I'm talking to you about Mesa.
Very good. Thank you, Scott. Lori, could you give us some feedback on Apache Junction?
Absolutely. I love Apache Junction. I've been there many times. And by the way, if you ever want an introduction to their economic development director, I know her personally. She's awesome. And you would absolutely love her.
Don't get any ideas?
Apache Junction is nestled at the foot of Superstition Mountains, and knowing that they have this beautiful mountain range right in their backyard, there's a plethora of opportunities for hiking and biking and recreational activities. Apache Junction straddles two counties, so part of Apache Junction is in Maricopa County. The bulk of Apache Junction is in Pinal County. But regardless, their past growth has been housing, and so there are numerous housing opportunities for your employees. They're also an exporter of their workforce simply because they don't have a lot of large employers there. So they have about 300,000 people in their workforce that could potentially come into Mesa and work. They've been great neighbors. They are focused very strategically on growing their small businesses, and as a matter of fact, they've recently started up a very strong entrepreneurship program. You didn't tell us about that, Janine.
Thank you for covering that one.
They've partnered with ASU on this entrepreneurship program. They're developing their downtown, which has some really lovely restaurants and some lovely shops. So if you and your employees ever need a great place to go and hike and bike and shop and eat, I would encourage you to go to Apache Junction.
All right. Lori, thank you. All right, and lastly, Janine, would you give us some feedback about Queen Creek, please?
Absolutely, and as luck would have it, I happened to run into the director, and she gave me this fabulous number for sure. So, here you go. All the information you need, Marc. Actually, Queen Creek is an amazing town, and I'm going to take a little bit of a different twist on this. I want to share that the Apache Junction City Council and the Town of Queen Creek's Council have really had a great relationship, a working relationship, and have hosted joint meetings to talk about important issues. When there are communities that have adjacent borders or future borders, there's a lot of critical issues that are important to both communities. City limits, where freeway and transportation corridors are going to go. Who's going to service a particular area. So I'm really pleased to know that our councils have been open and honest in this dialogue. I think for companies and business, that creates predictability and stability to know that councils work together and are talking about these things. But Queen Creek is not only a good neighbor to Apache Junction, they're a good neighbor to the region. They're very active and they're involved in a lot of regional economic development efforts. They're at the table, they're part of that conversation, so I think they make great neighbors in many ways. They're also a younger community, and they're making some smart decisions. They're doing some things right because they're attracting people to come and live in their community who are younger, who have families, who are very well educated. So they're making some good decisions, and I believe that because of those decisions, people will want to move there and live there and invest there, and people are going to be grounded and rooted there. So I think that's what they're creating, and we're happy to be their neighbors.
Thank you so much.
So we're gonna end this with two questions. First question, based on recent feedback that you've received from site selectors, what are one or two reasons why the Phoenix East Valley region has been identified as a place to locate your business? And this is for Doreen, Dan, and Micah.
Ladies first.
I think one reason the East Valley has been a strong location decision is because of the high education levels. Employers know they're going to have a quality workforce when they move their businesses here. We rank higher than the U.S. when it comes to percentage of bachelor degrees or higher. So that's really important. We're seeing that in the types of leads that we get. Workforce is number one on the list, and being able to attract those employees. So
That was exactly what I was going to say, so I'll pivot a little bit. I think a major part of it is infrastructure, connectivity, Loop 202, Loop 101, the 60. You can move goods and people quickly and efficiently between markets, but really it's labor.
Yeah, and I'd echo that comment. It definitely labor, a high concentration of graduates and community college and higher education offerings for the workforce, with excellent programs that are integrated into business through various forms of partnerships, starting at the K through 12 programs, working their way up into the CTE programs. Certainly not enough in the CTE area. There's never enough, in my opinion. But across the board, a qualified, educated workforce, and largely a reverse commute coming out of the Phoenix metropolitan area.
Great, thank you. Scott, Lori, Janine, apologize. We had a question for you all that we're going to have to skip over. I know, we're watching the clock. We want to be respectful of people's time. But the last question, everybody gets to, so you guys get the floor first to answer. In competing with other states to attract businesses with high-quality jobs, what are some of the tools that we're missing in our economic toolkit that would be helpful and should be considered in Arizona?
Somebody so I guess I'll take the first stab. I think, looking at, if you focus so much on tools, you can get kind of lost in the fact that there is much more into it than just economic development incentives. It was about, cheap places to work. Nevada be cleaning our clocks, and it's the other way around. When we compete against Nevada, we almost always win. But to directly answer the question, there are very few tools within the state of Arizona. There is no job training dollars anymore. Most of it isn't tied to federal programs. We're the only state in the nation that has no dollars to train both incumbent and net new employees coming in. You'll hear a lot of people talking about TIF. You got an update on GPLET. The fact is that both helps infrastructure get built both vertically and horizontally. And we have almost no ability to build infrastructure horizontally. Growth pays for itself. And as every person on this panel has echoed, you need to have that already in place in which to attract high-quality jobs and people. On top of that as well, tech transfer is very difficult in the state. And if you're looking at more and more, we're competing for knowledge and innovation jobs. This isn't about being the low-cost provider. It's about providing the right workforce. The reason why 30 to 40% of the net new jobs that have come to Tempe in the past 5 years has been workforce. The comfort of knowing you are right next door to Arizona State University, the largest, most innovative school in the country. The further they get away from that location, the less and less interested they are in that site. I'm talking, people won't look south of Broadway if they're considering Tempe in a lot of cases because they want that connectivity. And on top of that, the biggest concern I'm hearing on workforce isn't that new. They can get that new employee like that. It's the guy with 10 years experience, the middle manager, the project manager, that's gonna help that company scale. It's hard to attract that person and bring them back in because their roots are placed in another state. And it's tough to get them to move when they've got, a trailing spouse, children in school. And that's something we need to address long term, and it's more than just a tool. It's a comprehensive economic development strategy that the state has failed to recognize. We have chased, I've been back here for a decade. We've gone after solar, data centers, aerospace and defense, now it's Century Technology. All great targets, but none of them have been particularly focused for more than 18 months before we move on to the next thing. And you can't really focus on attracting and using good tools unless you have a comprehensive strategy around it and a tax code that matches what you're trying to attract and a workforce strategy to develop those people.
Great. Lori, did you want to?
Wow, that was a mouthful. I would echo on the two things that Scott mentioned. We need a really strong workforce training program at the state level. Before I came to the state of Arizona, I did economic development for 8.5 years in the state of Illinois. I also did for economic development for 4 years in the state of Tennessee. And when I came here, I was extremely surprised at the lack of strong programs and the commitment to strong programs to help support not only the businesses, but the residents of the state of Arizona in terms of job training. So job training is key simply because the #1 driver for businesses right now is workforce.
I might be the economic developer that has a different perspective, but I really agree with Scott when it comes to strategy and policy. At the statewide level, we need to have an economic development strategy that matches our tax code and our tax code that matches our strategy. On the tool side, as soon as there's a tool in place, you're gonna have a project that comes in right behind it that can't take advantage of it because it doesn't fit nicely into that project parameter. So across the board, I think, the tools that will allow the broadest and most success are education, K through 12 and higher education, investment in infrastructure to support, economic activity, and really, Scott nailed it, was a long-term commitment to a plan. This is what we're gonna do across the board to advance economic competitiveness and not deviate every 18 to 24 months.
Anybody else would like to add?
I agree with everything that's been said. I think in our community, though, we had a tool in place, that we had a TIF district for some time until it was challenged, and we had it in place before they changed the law on it. But after we had it in place, it was working beautifully for us for a number of years. We got a lot of infrastructure. We actually had a lot of a land acquisition within the TIF district because people saw the benefit of that, and then it got challenged in court. Unfortunately, we lost, so we no longer have that tool available to us. But what was amazing, what we were able to do in a redevelopment area by simply having one tool in our toolkit, and now I feel like we have very little. So I think comprehensively, we need to look at all of these things, and community specific, though, I would love to see TIF come back.
I like the development tools that have been discussed, and I don't disagree with any of my colleagues up here. The technology transfer is a big one with the #1 higher education institution in the nation for innovation, and not having a solid tech transfer component seems to contradict exactly what they were talking about in terms of strategy, policy, tax code that mirrors what we want to go after. We want, as we look at the Phoenix East Valley, and we look at the workforce that's here, and we focus in on innovation, science, technology, STEM occupations, the ability to have those training dollars, the ability to have a state policy that supports proper technology innovation is absolutely paramount. That's a tool that I think Phoenix East Valley should really focus in on and really support any kind of legislation that helps us with that.
Great, thank you. Janine, anything you want to add?
Doreen?
Doris.
Yeah, I think everybody hit on it. I mean, I have on my list here, they've touched on everything, so.
We've
I won't
covered it.
belabor it. Yeah.